Hi viewers and welcome to the channel, and this is part 5 of learning Python for beginners from a FreeCAD perspective. In the previous video we're looking at harvesting the input from a user. In this video we're going to start from fresh and we're looking to detect an interaction between two objects. In this video we're looking at the if statement, and also we're going to journey into the actual object's properties and functions to allow us to create the interaction. So we're going to get into different commands with this one. So we're going to explore the actual object, so that cube, and what properties and what functions it has to offer. This will allow us to go into more detail with the if statement and start to get a feel of how FreeCAD sits on top of Python, allowing you to access faces, edges, vectors, etc. So let's do a bit of exploration and a bit of learning and give this a go. If you like this video, please hit a like and also subscribe to the channel. I also have a Ko-Fi site where you can actually donate to my contributions to the community, and that's at ko-fi.com/mang0. So I'm going to start a new macro, so I'm going to get rid of this one, just save it off. I'm going to still keep the cube on here. I'm going to create another body in here, and I'm going to do it in a different workbench. So I'm going to create a part design, create a body, create a sketch, XY plane, okay. And we're just going to place a square upon here, like a rectangle, square, whatever. Let's close that. So we've got that there, and let's give that a bit of a pad. And I want something like 1mm. There we go, so that sits there. So we need to find out the interaction between this cube and this object here, this body. So first of all we need the active document, the current document that we're on. And to do that we need to use the FreeCAD namespace. So I'm going to sign up a variable called doc and make that equal to FreeCAD.ActiveDocument. So that's popped up there, hit enter, and if I type in doc, we can see we've got built-in function active document there. And let's just bring this up. So doc dot has at the moment not much in there because we're actually accessing the active document. So I'm going to open and close the brackets in there because that's an actual function. Hit enter. Now our doc is the actual document. Now we've got doc, we can use the get object on there, and we need to pick up each of these objects. So this one here is the cube, but it's actually called something else. So if I come over here and roll over the cube here, tree view, you can see down the bottom it's saying valid and internal name box. So we need the internal name for here, because get object returns the object with the given name. So you have to pass that in a name. So get object box in quotes, can be single or double, is coming back part feature. So let's assign that up to box equals doc.getObject. So I just press the up arrow there to pull in the last command. So that's the document and the box assigned up. We also need the body. Body equals, and that's doc.getObject, and that is the body. So we've got the body and we've got the box for those two, and what I'm going to do is just copy those. Matter of fact, I'm just going to use our little that one there. So the box, and I'm going to start a new macro up. So macros and create place test. There we go, and we'll add that in, and the other one we want is the body. Press up and use that as well, copy and paste that in. And also we need the document, so doc, press up, grab that, and let's get rid of that indent because that'll throw us. Hit enter. And that's in there as well. Has that got an indent? Yeah, let's get rid of that. So we assigned out the document to the FreeCAD.ActiveDocument and also assigned up the box and body. So we've got those. Now, with the box and the body, they've all got a number of functions and a number of properties in there. So if I did box dot, we'll get all the functions and properties that are available. We know if it's a function because if we go down to the little purple icons here, it says return a list of indexes of touch values. So it's always get sub-objects, saying there what it does. So all these normally have something that says return something. So all the purple ones are functions. And then we've got the other items such as ID, in list, etc. And these are all properties, and these should be read-only properties. So if we come into our cube and look down at the ID, we can see there is no ID there. We've got a length, a width, and a height, and you can see the height is there, the label is there, the length is there. So these can be changed. Items like ID, which are not with the hand pointing down to the little, not even sure what that is, such as these in blue, are read-only, and these are editable. So if I come in here and did box.height, this is editable. So if I hit enter and then did box.height equals 11, hit enter, you can see that changed. But if I come down to box.id, there we go, that one there, and hit enter, get the ID back. But if I try to change that, equals 78, then it's not going to allow me to change it. You can see it's saying it's read only. So the icon gives you an idea of what those items are, if they're functions, if they're read-only properties, or if they're editable properties. For this one, we want to journey into the box.shape. So shape there. So notice the casing as well. If I hit enter, it pulls back the solid. So in shape, we've also, if you hit dot, we have a number of properties in here as well. And we can get to such things as within the shape, we've got the bounding box, we've got the area, but more importantly, we've got the edges, we've got the faces, and we've got the vertexes. So we can go in and test whereabouts those are in our 3D space, or do things with them. So the vertexes, if I open that up and hit enter, that's pulling back, as you can see there, and it's in square brackets, so it's a list of vertexes. Remember, the lists are 0 index based, so if I want the first vertex out there, I'm in a 0, and that brings back a vertex object there. And that object will also have a number of other items in there. So at the moment, the autocomplete doesn't actually complete that. So if I assign that up to v equals box.shape.vertexes and do v dot, and then I get all those items in here. And if I put in x, that tells me where that vertex is, y, that vertex. So the first vertex will be the first vertex of this shape. So I did Z on that, you can see that's come up 11. So this first vertex is at 0, 0, 11, which if I hover over here, that shows me that the first vertex is there. We can get to the placement as well. So our box dot placement brings back a placement, which also has a base, which is the vertex there. So that's 0, 0, 0, which is the placement vertex, which is that one there. So we've got those. What I want to do is detect if this box is interacting with this object. So let's have a look, see what we've got. So we know we've got the box.shape, has a number of things on there. Now it does help me knowing some of these commands in here already. So I know within shape there's something called the bounding box, and that's the box that if you draw it around that shape, whatever's inside that is part of that body. Now if you had a circle, that would be a box as well. It won't tightly wrap it, but it allows you to actually know what's inside there. We've also got a command called isInside. This one is a bit different. It checks whether a point is inside or outside the shape. So a point in this case is a vector. And this is why I've shown you the different properties in there. So we can get the vectors and we can check to see if a vector is inside an object. We also could use a distance to find if we're actually interacting with it. But you've got to be wary of the limitations of some of these commands. So if you're thinking of inside, you're looking for a vector in 3D space. Now that cube is made up of a number of vectors. It's made up of 8 vectors, 4 for the top, 4 for the bottom. So if any of those vectors are inside that shape, then we're interacting with it. But say if that shape actually intersects straight through the middle, then none of those vectors are actually inside that shape. So we just have to be wary of that. But I'm going to use inside for the time being, just to show you how we can use that in an if statement. If we're doing inside, then it's asking for a vector. So we're actually saying is something inside the box shape, but we need to say is something actually inside the body. So body.shape is inside. There we go, is inside. Open the bracket, and then we can use the box dot placement, and we're just going to check one vector for this one for our first test, and then we'll extend that later. Dot base, which is a vector, so that will check if that vector there has entered this shape. We need a tolerance, which we're going to just put as 1.0 until we know what it is, and we're going to say true if it lays along the face. And that'll be counted if it's inside or not. If I hit enter there, we'll receive a false, which is correct. So that point there is not inside that shape. If I move that, right click, transform, and place that so it's actually inside that shape. Should have made that a bit bigger, but that's actually just poking out the bottom. Just bring it up a bit. Well, that'd be sitting on that face, so that should pull back a true. So let's OK that. Try that again. So that's now pulling back a true. So we're going to use that command in our macro. We'll just place it in there for the time being. So how do we put this in an if statement? So what we want to do is when we run this macro, we want to test if this box is inside this body. So we define them. So we define the dock, and we've got the box and the body from there. So if, and then we can say, because this is bringing back true and false, we can use that command there. If body.shape inside, and then we use the colon on the end of that, enter, and then tab in. So anything that's tabbed in means that will be inside that if statement. For the time being, I'm just going to put a placeholder in here. That's something called pass. What that'll do is that will just run this code. It will get in here and just exit out of here. It's just a way of allowing you to build your code and not worry about statements for the time being. We also want to do else as well. So else in here. This means if it's not inside, then we want to do something else. And again, we'll use colon and then just tab in and use the word pass in there. So we're building up a skeleton here. So we're not actually doing anything in here. We're just entering and coming out. I'm just going to save that, and I'm going to run this code. So I'm just going to bring this down to give us a bit more space. And we'll watch what happens down here. So I'm going to clear this, clear the console. Now macros, execute macro, and we can see nothing's happened. And that's because we've got the passes in here. If I took these passes out, what will happen? This will error. So macros, execute macro, and we can see we've got an error that's come down here. It's inspected an indent block, and we've got nothing actually inside our indent block. So this means that using pass, will allow us to just carry on thinking about the code without dealing with any errors, because we may want to put some extra code down here that we need to test. So I want to do something now. So I've got those passes in there. I want to replace them with some command there to distinguish whether I've intersected that body or not. So we're going to change the color, but we're going to hit a bit of a problem. Now, this is to do with something called an API. At the moment, we're using the FreeCAD namespace. Now, FreeCAD is an API. That's an application programming interface. What that means is that there's a number of commands in a number of namespaces in that API that allows you to access FreeCAD. If I want to change the color of this to say something like, let's come down and look at our view. That would be on body. There we go, our shade color, that's the one we want, that shade color there. Let's click on that and change that to something like a bluey color. That's not going to stand out. Let's change it to something like red. There we go. And bring this up. Okay, we get our command down here. But look where it's accessing. It's accessing FreeCADGui. So if I assumed in here, so you can see get object body.shadeColor. If I took my body there and just use that in here, so pass, I'm going to change my body dot shade color equals, that's a red, green, blue tuple that come back here because it's a tuple, because it's in brackets. If I assumed that would work, then I'll be wrong, because looking at the beginning of this is actually a different API. This is the GUI API, where FreeCAD is the internal API. You can look at it as the app API and the GUI API. So app is all the documents and objects. The GUI is actually the GUI itself, so you can actually run commands via that GUI. If I try to run this macro, execute macro, then you can see this error is coming up here. Object has no attribute shade color. And if we look at the view, panels, and report view, you can see that coming up here. So just be wary of these different APIs. Let me just jump into here so you can see we've got FreeCAD Wiki. So there's the FreeCAD API. And you can see this is a particular root module of FreeCAD. It can also be called by app from FreeCAD Interpreter. It contains everything that is needed to manipulate the documents and their contents. Now, if we did, it's FreeCAD API, so let's have a look for GUI API. And best idea is to search this, so FreeCAD GUI API. There it is. So this module is counterpart of the FreeCAD module. It contains everything related to the user interface and the 3D views. So color is to do with that user interface, because if you think about it in the 3D world, color doesn't actually exist. All that exists is edges, vertexes, and faces. So the color of those faces is really a visualization. It's not the actual property of that item in 3D space, that object in 3D space. So you have to be worried about that. So we've got the FreeCAD and the FreeCADGui API. If we go back to FreeCAD, what I would do is just use that command there. So we've also got the active document in there. So if I use this FreeCADGui.getDocument, if I just paste this in here, .active document, there we go. And that's the active document. Also, we've got the .active document. Can be a bit confusing because we've got two in there, so they're both the same. So we can use either or in there. And you can see we've got doc equals FreeCAD.active document here. And if I use that, you can see how different these are. You just have to be a bit wary of this. So that's a document object, and the other one's a GUI document object. we're changing colors or anything like that, then you change via the FreeCADGui. But you can see that when you actually change the color inside here, we get the FreeCADGui.get document, get object command there, so you know if you're using stuff like colors, you can change it in here. So we're going to be using the FreeCADGui in here, and I'm going to be actually just copying and pasting this one in for speed. We've got red, green, blue. If we was looking at this space, there's a tuple. First one is red, so that's full red. Then we've got green, which is off basically, and blue, which is off 0. So 0 to 1 in there, and we'll just do this one here as green. So we'll zero that one out and make that one green, RGB. So we'll change if they intersect or not, change the color using the FreeCADGui API rather than the FreeCAD API. Close that, come back to our document, let's just save that. And at the moment, I changed that to red, didn't I? So let's move that cube. Right click, transform, so it's not intersecting. Okay, let's run the macro, go back to the macro, execute macro, got no errors, and that's green. Transform that body, right click, transform. There you go, move that body rather than moving the cube. Doesn't matter which one. Execute the macro, macros, execute, and now it's red. So that's the if statement working in there. So we went through if and pass and else. So we're saying if we have intersected, then we do this one, else we change it back to the normal color. So in our next video, we're going to be looking more at being able to detect whether that shape is actually inside another body. And we'll be moving to a different command, because at the moment we're testing whether a vector is inside there. With our next command, we're going to be looking to test whether faces are inside. So this gives us a more direct way of detecting if that whole shape is interacting with another shape, rather than testing the individual vectors of the corner of the shape itself. We will also be looking at nested ifs and start introducing looping as well. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to my site, and also I have a Ko-Fi site where you can actually donate a few pence or a few pounds, dollars, or whatever your currency is, and that's at ko-fi.com/mang0, and there you'll be able to help me fund my site, and all the money that I actually get from any funds will actually get pushed back into the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing. I'll see you next time.